I'm Leonard Lopate. This is WNYC 93.9. We're online at WNYC.org. Rod McKuen seemed to be everywhere in the 60s and 70s. The singer-songwriter and poet was a frequent guest on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show. He composed Academy Award-nominated film scores, sold 75 million books, most of them poetry, wrote 1,500 songs, some of which have been recorded by artists like Frank Sinatra all the way to Madonna. But sometime in the 1980s, he seemed to disappear. Well, it is my pleasure to welcome him back now, a day before his 70th birthday, or as he puts it, the 30th anniversary of his 40th birthday. He'll be celebrating it in a big way this Wednesday, the day after, at Carnegie Hall, all of which brings Rod McKuen to the show. Hi, Rod.
Hello, Leonard. It's nice to be here.
So let's first establish categories. Do you think of yourself primarily as a poet or a musician?
I think really entertainer. I mean, I'm happiest when I'm performing, whether it's in a recording studio or on stage. And certainly, this is my 24th time at Carnegie Hall, and I'm intimidated by it every time.
So this has been
wonderful.
It's been a long wait between the last visits.
Oh, you bet. I woke up one morning in the 80s, and I felt like I had the whole world on my shoulders. I don't know why, but I did. It was a start of a clinical depression. And about a decade later, I woke up and thought to myself, what in the hell do you have to be depressed about? I mean, you've had a wonderful life. You've really had no problems. And the answer was nothing. And so I called my doctor and I said, I'm ready to try Prozac or something. I want to get out of this. And I did. I took Prozac for a while, about 4 months, and I snapped out of it. And I promise you, it's not like a recovering alcoholic or anything like that. There is no way I will ever be depressed again. I mean,
you don't see it as a genetic thing, although it came so late in your life. You were in your 50s.
We still don't know what it is. I mean, no one's been able to diagnose it. William Styron wrote a book about it, and different people have had problems with it, but no one's been able to really diagnose it.
How did Dan Rather help you in all of this?
Dan Rather wrote me a courage letter.
He knew that you had dropped out. He knew you were depressed.
Dropped out, and it was a wonderful thing to do, and it came really at a time when I needed it. And also, there was a singer named Jerry Southern, a wonderful jazz singer, and she was going through it, so she helped me a lot. And then, of course, she died on me, which was unforgivable. It's like Bush starting a war just before I go to Carnegie Hall. I mean, he could have waited a couple of weeks.
You took it personally.
But I did. I really sort of took it upon myself to heal myself. I just thought, this is crazy. I don't have time to be depressed or to be unhappy or to feel sorry for myself. There's too much work to do and too much going on in the world, and too few years left.
Did it make you feel proud when people were protesting the possibility of a war with Iraq, and then during
not really.
when people started saying "Make love, not war"? Didn't you actually
coin
that phrase?
I did coin that phrase, but you got to remember, I come from a very strange situation. I volunteered for the Army in Korea and spent a couple of years there, and then I came out and I was very disenchanted with the war in Vietnam. I protested it, and yet I went over and entertained the troops. So that's kind of a dichotomy.
Well, a lot of people supported the troops even in Iraq,
I never have a quarrel. I never have a quarrel with the poor grunts who have to fight. It's always my quarrel is with the old men who legislate wars who've never been there themselves. I don't know anybody who's fought in a war who is for war. I just hope that, we'll lose not too many more of our young men and women, and that, this will be over soon.
Well, let's go back to the career. You said you were a performer. So that, and probably first it was as a singer-songwriter, wasn't it?
Yes, indeed.
Did the lyrics always come first? Is that how the poetry later came about?
I used to, when I was a kid, I had so many jobs. A lot of them took me, I worked as an itinerant laborer, and I worked on farms, and I worked in rodeo. So I at night I listened to the radio a lot. In the daytime, I would try to remember the songs I heard, and I couldn't remember them usually, and so I'd make them up. And that led to writing my own songs. Mm-hmm. And by the time I was ready to sing, I had quite a group of songs.
But then when you started publishing the poetry, had you written those poems as song lyrics? Or
no, they
did
came
you know
out of
that they were different when you started writing
They
them?
came out of a kind of a diary. I mean, I don't know anybody who... I don't know any song lyrics, including those by my favorite writers like Johnny Mercer and Larry Hart and Bob Dylan, whose song lyrics stand up as poetry. They write poetry, and it's very good. But the very framework of a song means you have to compromise because of the melody line. And so they're two distinctly different mediums.
Were you stunned when the books took off the way they did? I mean,
Absolutely.
You probably sold, is that figure correct, 75 million copies?
Yeah, it's probably closer to 78, but...
Well, at $1 a pop, that's a lot of money.
Well, it was... I'm
not
for complaining. I'm not complaining at all, but...
it's amazing you got depressed.
But I was certainly the most surprised of anybody. In fact, my brother and I published the book out of our basement, and there's nothing more intimidating than seeing a truck pull up to the garage and dump 5,000 books there. And he was selling them up and down the coast of California out of his Volkswagen because everybody said poetry won't sell. And
you were already a well-known performer at that time?
Not really. Well, I was had a kind of a cult following as a recording artist, and that helped. I used to advertise the books on the backs of the albums, and so it just all sort of happened at once. Everybody sort of discovered my songs and my books, and I'm performing. I can't put a date on it or anything. It just really all happened at once.
Well, there was the poems were very accessible, which gained you a huge following, and also perhaps got you a little lack of respect in the world of poetry.
It was incredible because when I was a cult figure, everybody loved what I was doing, especially the critics. But the minute I started selling in the millions of copies, critics said, how dare there be a best-selling poet?
Although W.H. Auden said he was a fan of yours.
Yes, I had.
That's a pretty good guy to have as a fan.
And I had, and Robert Frost wrote a poem about me, so that wasn't too bad. But so did Ogden Nash. But on the other hand, it's difficult to please the academics if you have any kind of mass following.
Now the
That's
song.
all right. Academia is nuts, anyways.
Well, in the end, if you don't sell and they go after you, it can be very, very sad. But if you sell a lot, or if you get their praise, either way, it's a lot easier to live with yourself. Well,
it's numbing in any respect. I mean, you can't believe any of it. If somebody says, excuse me, you're wonderful, it's as bad as if they say you're terrible. You know yourself whether or not you do something right. I mean, I remember once, one of my most horrible experiences at Carnegie Hall was the first time I appeared there. I used to always open with an up-tempo song. I don't do that anymore. But I came out on stage for the opening number, and I started singing, and I was singing the lyrics to the song that opened the second half. And I said, stop, wait a minute. And I went back off stage and came back out again and started all over again. From then on, it was easy that time. But I'm still intimidated by it. I mean, every time this time I probably have over-prepared. I'm trying to wean down 40 songs to 30, and it's hard.
Well, you've written a lot of songs, and you've collaborated on a lot of songs.
Yes, I have. And in fact, I'm still collaborating. I've written a lot of songs with Johnny Mercer that are only now just finding the light of day because we would start songs and not finish them, and so I've taken it upon myself to finish some of them.
So Johnny Mercer wrote the lyrics in those?
Well, we both write words and music. Some of his best songs he wrote the music to, like Something's Gotta Give, Dream. He wrote the music to those. But collaboration is wonderful, and since we both wrote lyrics and music, it's a kind of a third stream songs.
Same thing with Jacques Brel, I'm sure.
Yes, exactly. Jacques wrote both words and music. He did collaborations too, but that was a wonderful experience.
Collaborating with him.
It was just a marvelous thing. It couldn't be duplicated.
Have certain songs been recorded more than others?
Well, I suppose of the ones I've written with Brel, certainly Namakitaba, If You Go Away, and The Moribond Seasons in the Sun have been recorded more than any others. I'm Not Afraid, maybe. Of my own songs, where I wrote both words and music, I guess Gene and Love's Been Good to Me and Rock Gently and songs like that. And, of course, all the songs Sinatra recorded.
Well, Sinatra actually commissioned an entire album of songs.
Yes, that was something. Working with him, that was a great trip. I mean, I guess he was the most professional singer I ever worked with. He came to the session knowing all the songs, and I mean, one of the most intimidating experiences was I was in a studio, and he called into me I was in the control room, and he called in and said, "How's the tempo, Rod?" And I thought, right.
But, I think he was showing you respect. After all, you're a singer.
He was great, too.
You're a singer, and I'm sure, and I think that's really interesting because you probably wrote these songs, and many of the songs, thinking of them as songs for yourself.
Well, kind of, except that when he commissioned the album, I think the nicest compliment I ever had from him was, he said, "You really got inside of me, Rod." And that was a great compliment.
Mm-hmm. I like your songs for him better than Do It My Way.
Well, I got to tell you, I like my songs better than other people's songs he's recorded. I'm so fortunate to have had him record a number of them.
You wrote all of those books of poetry, but you also wrote other books, Finding My Father, about your life, and it was very revealing about things that people, I'm sure, were surprised to learn. Well,
and I've always been kind of revealing in my songs or whatever. I'm pretty much of a naked human being. I make a lot of mistakes like everybody else does, but I'm really not ashamed of anything I've done in my life.
Well, you were a victim to some degree because you had a stepfather who abused you.
Well, that's true, and I spent some time in reform school because I was a chronic truant and ran away from home so much that they put me in school for 4 years, but at least I was away from him.
Well, with the kind of darkness that you experienced, how do you explain the fact that your poetry is often so life-affirming?
Because I really am not a pessimist at all. I'm very positive about life. That's why I do not understand how in the world I was able to go through a decade of depression. I mean, how self-indulgent can you get?
Well, it wasn't anything you could control. It's a chemical thing, isn't it?
But it is chemical, but still, I should have been able to do something about it. I should have tried harder. I should have been willing to take medication earlier.
Well, you were maybe because you were not a kid, and so it just seemed like a weird phase you were going through.
And also, I liked life at home. I liked working in the garden. I liked playing with the animals. I liked, there were times when I didn't go out of the yard for. One time, 3 years. I didn't answer the telephone once for 5 years.
On the other hand, here's a man who has been involved in a number of political causes throughout his life. South Africa, AIDS. You have the Buddy Project. You have senior awareness.
Well, we don't call them seniors. We call them seasoned citizens. I'm very much. I'm going through a really wonderful time in my life now because. After all these years, I found a corporate sponsor, HP Hewlett-Packard, is going to sponsor me doing free concerts for seniors all over America. And I want to take the message to seniors. If enough people tell them that they're no longer good for the workforce, they begin to believe it. And yet, seniors are doing such great work volunteering. And I also want to take a message to the younger people that I don't know about you, but I prefer experience over internship. And I would like to see people not turned out to pasture quite so young. I know 40-year-olds who can't get a job. That's disgusting. Never mind the 70 and 80-year-olds. So I want to do something about it, and I'm going to be in Washington and on the tour, and I certainly intend to make myself heard there.
I hear that you have a dream project, and that would be recording an album with the Dixie Chicks in French.
I just thought that would be and then I thought we'd tackle German after that. I thought it would be an interesting
You could put on a line of Russian dressing.
I just, I find it so crazy that I mean, but that's the one thing you do. If you're a country and western artist, you don't kick sand in I can say it, I guess, in the face of kickers. You just don't do that. And
actually, you can't say it, but you said it. What can I do?
But I mean, they have a certain ethic or whatever, and I must say that I have a very hard time about this war. It's very, very difficult for me. Like I say, I hate any war. I hate any.
But now you have a platform. You're
human
back
being
out.
Killing anyone,
You're out there again. You even Googled yourself, I understand, and discovered all sorts of things about yourself that you didn't even know.
Oh, I mean, I tuned into the web and found out that I was uncircumcised. I mean, can you imagine finding out something like that? I knew it, of course, but I didn't think the world knew it. But I mean, other
I'm
things
sure you found
too.
out things that aren't true.
Well, I did. In fact, tomorrow starts my 6th year with my website, rodmckuen.com, plug. And we have, every day I write something new, and it's all archived, so we're the website that ate the web. And I had to do it in self-defense because there was a lot of stuff out there that was baloney.
Well, one thing that we know for sure is that you'll be at Carnegie Hall this Wednesday.
I hope you'll come.
And that's
going to be some surprises. And I'm going to
you'll
have...
be 70 in one day.
That's right. And I'm going to have a very big surprise guest. I mean, probably one of the world's most famous people will be my surprise guest.
Well,
how's that?
I look forward to seeing that person. Thank you so much, Rod.
Thank you for
giving
me so much time. I appreciate it. And I appreciate public radio.